I've mentioned in the past that I used to run a primarily self-improvement based brand. That was the essence of my YouTube channel that you're watching right now. And if you scroll through my old videos, you'll see that for yourself. And that is not by coincidence. That is because I'm somebody who values self-improvement. And what I've realized through all of my years of consciously striving to become a better man is that in order to improve yourself, you have to acknowledge your deficiencies. You have to be honest with yourself about your weaknesses and shortcomings so that you can turn them into competencies and eventually strengths. That said, I think I have been going a little bit overboard in the recent past when it comes to speaking about some of the deficiencies of the United States of America. And look, to be fair, this is my first time being back in the US after spending 14 months in the Netherlands, in Europe, and I just want to speak about these deficiencies while they're fresh in my mind before I begin to normalize them again, because I know that given enough time, I'm going to adapt and I'm going to normalize these oversized parking lots and these toll roads and car dependency and all of these other things that I think the US can improve upon. That said, I think it's also fair and really vital to acknowledge some of the strengths that America offers, because while it is important to work on your deficiencies and shortcomings, it's also important to acknowledge your strengths so that you can build on them even further and sort of find common denominators between those strengths in order to establish a more productive and just empowering culture, whether at the personal level or at the macro level with a whole entire country. That said, the first thing that I do like about the US after living in Europe for 1 year is the quality of the higher education. So if you didn't know, I'm a college dropout. I dropped out of college after about a semester and a half, and when I dropped out, I knew I wasn't going back. I probably told my parents I was going to take a gap here, but I was never going to go back. I was never going to go back to college because I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and to be an entrepreneur, you don't need to go to college. But the vast majority of people, not just in the US, but on this planet, are not going to be entrepreneurs. The vast majority of people are going to work at 9-to-5 jobs at varying levels, but they're going to work at 9-to-5 jobs. And there's nothing wrong with working a 9-to-5 job. But if you are going to work a 9-to-5 job, if that's the path that you're going to follow, then it behooves you to go to the best possible school that you can go to. Now, maybe this dynamic isn't really as prevalent in Europe, but what I will say is that America has some of the top educational institutions on this entire planet. And we know this because people from all around the world are flocking to these educational institutions. Now, in my opinion, they are overpriced. And I think that it's morally irresponsible of parents and guardians, teachers, and just society in general to encourage 18-year-olds to pull out tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loan debt before they're old enough to drink a beer. I just don't really see that as ethically sound. But what I will say is that if the colleges were not worth the price, the colleges wouldn't be able to charge the amount that they charge. Now, just to give you a reference point, I was supposed to go to the University of Texas at Austin, which is the best public school here in the state of Texas, and one of the best public colleges, universities in the whole entire country. Public. So there are much better private institutions, and a lot of the institutions that I'm speaking about right now are private. So Harvard, Yale, all of your Ivy Leagues, and then Stanford, places like that that attract the top level talent from around the world. The college that I was supposed to go to, I ended up going to community college to avoid the debt, but the college that I was supposed to go to charged $25,000 per year. Now, if you get your bachelor's degree, that's 4 years. You do the math. $100,000. I would have been $100,000 in student loan debt. I thank myself every day for not having done that, by the way. I'm very, very grateful that I don't have that debt. But I will say that if I had wanted to work a 9-to-5, it probably would have been worth it to take on that debt, because at those institutions, not only will you learn the skills, but you'll also make the connections to get a high-paying job. So at places like Harvard or Yale, for example, the reason why they're able to charge so much money is not just for the pedigree, it's because of the results. It's because the people who go there typically come out of college and get much higher paying positions. I mean, most of the people who go to these Ivy Leagues are going to make 6 figures or more per year, which is a lot of money. And they may even have opportunities to make high income overseas if they want. They could take their Harvard degree and move to Europe and get a high paying job and establish themselves there if that's what they like. The point is, it gives them options. And while I will say that European educational institutions do seem to be very, very good as well, I don't know that they are attracting the international demand and acclaim that the top level American institutions are. Now, of course, there are exceptions to this rule. I think Oxford University and Cambridge University in the UK are 2 of the top educational institutions in the whole entire world. But when you just think about the concentration of high level colleges, I don't know that there is a country that is better than the US in this regard. And this is coming from a college dropout once again. Now, again, the level of education, maybe even the quality of the education itself, is just as good, if not better, in Europe, I think. Because my girlfriend, she is a college graduate, and her 4-year degree required her to do a thesis. And she also didn't have to spend the first 2 years of her degree taking classes that she already took in high school, like history and basic math and science, which is kind of a scam, but that's a different discussion for a different day. I wouldn't be surprised if the actual quality of the education itself is better in some of the European colleges, but in terms of the opportunities they provide, I don't know that my girlfriend would be able to take her degree and use it to demand the same kind of pay here in the US that somebody who went to an American college would be able to demand or garner over in Europe or here in the US. I hope this is making sense, but basically it just seems like American degrees hold more weight. That's what it seems like. I could be wrong about that. Again, I'm a bit out of the loop because I dropped out in 2019, but that's just what it seems like from the outside looking in. Now, the next thing that I like about the US after having lived in Europe for 14 months is free public restrooms. Now this right here, look, I'm gonna be honest with you. This is more of a personal thing, and it's not really that big of a deal having to pay 90 cents to use the restroom, because it's not like you're gonna use the restroom 5 times a day or anything, but I do drink a lot of water. Anybody who knows me in real life or has spent extensive time around me in real life knows that I drink a lot of water, around 3.8 liters or 1 gallon per day. And I know that's much more than the average person, but it's also because I'm a lot more physically active than the average person. That said, this also means that I have to pee a lot. I probably pee twice an hour on a lot of days. And again, this is a lot, but this is very inconvenient when you're in Europe. And not only are the public restrooms paid, so you have to pay to get in, but they're also far less prevalent. You don't even really have access to as many public restrooms in European cities as you do here. And this is actually an issue that I ran into when I was in New York as well. I went to New York when I was, I think, 18, first solo trip I ever took. And it got so bad that I actually had to pee on the subway. I had to pee on the subway in an empty water bottle. Not one of my proudest moments, but I felt so good afterwards. But I haven't had a close call like that being in Europe, but it's definitely something that puts me on edge because of that experience. Here in the US, you can go into pretty much any gas station, Quick Trip, 7-Eleven, Circle K, any other generic gas station, and you're going to have access to free public restrooms. Or you can go to any grocery store, Walmart, Target, Tom Thumb, Sprouts, wherever else, you will have access to public restrooms. Now, if I'm being honest with you, I suspect, correct me if I'm wrong, but I suspect that the reason why the US has many more free public restrooms, in fact, I don't think I've ever seen a paid public restroom. I think the reason why this is the case is because it's not legal to have paid public restrooms. That is the only explanation that I can come up with in my head, because given that American businesses tend to be much more profit-oriented than people-oriented, I have to imagine that if they could charge for bathrooms, they would. I have to imagine that they would, because bathrooms, at least it's my understanding that this is the case, but bathrooms are not a profitable thing. Maybe they can be profitable, because if I go to the bathroom and I'm walking out of the bathroom, I might see something that catches my eye and feel inclined to buy it. But generally speaking, investing in a restroom as a business owner is not really the most profitable thing you can invest in. So I definitely feel like the reason why people here, the businesses here, do not charge money to use their restrooms is because it's illegal. I don't know this factually, but that's just my logical explanation. Now, the sun is starting to go down, so I need to go ahead and wrap this video up as quickly as possible. But as we're going into the night, that brings me to the next thing that I do like about the US, especially compared to Europe, which is 24-hour culture. So basically, in Europe, I don't think I ever saw a place, and this is just in the Netherlands, by the way, so maybe in London or just some other larger countries or cities in Europe, maybe it's a bit different, but in the Netherlands, I never saw a place that was open 24 hours. And when I brought this up in a video, I think I brought this up in a few videos actually, when I first moved there, I caught a lot of hate. I caught a lot of hate from Dutch people, because to them, the 24-hour culture is mutually exclusive with work-life balance. I disagree. This is something that I'm standing on, okay? I'm standing 10 toes down on this point. These two things are not only not mutually exclusive, but I actually found that, look, again, I'm a college dropout and I make my money talking to a camera nowadays, but there was a point in time when I did work at service industry jobs. I did in the past. I worked at a restaurant. I worked at Chuck E. Cheese for, I think, what, 2 weeks, something like that, and then I quit. And then I worked at 2 retail clothing stores, H&M and PacSun. As a worker myself, okay, this is just when I was a worker, I was an employee, I always preferred the night shift. I always preferred the night shift, because for me, it was easy money, it was free money, and I'm a night owl. I am a night owl. I have tried waking up early and all of that. I never saw the point. So I'm the kind of person, I probably slept at 6 a.m. this morning, woke up at 2, got up, now I'm filming these videos. And that's just how my life is structured. I'm gonna go to the gym, and the gym is 24 hours. So I don't have to worry about making it to the gym by a certain time. And to be fair, actually, I was wrong. There were gyms in the Netherlands that were 24 hours. That you had 24-hour access, Basic Fit and Anytime Fitness. Those are the 2 gyms that I personally went to. And you had 24-hour access to both. And I took advantage of that for sure. There were definitely many, many workouts past 1 or 2 a.m. where I had the gym to myself, and it was absolutely beautiful. But outside of the gym, I mean, gas stations or stores, things like that, in the Netherlands, you don't really have stores. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, it also could be the case that it's because I was in smaller areas, but I don't live in a very big city, by American standards at least, by any means. And I can walk to the local 7-Eleven or Quick Trip and go get a protein cookie at 3:30 a.m. There's nothing to stop me from doing that. And a lot of times when I do that, when my girlfriend and I go out late at night to maybe get some snacks or whatever from the gas station, there are other people there too. We're not the only ones. So I think this is more a function of Americans in general just being night owls. I think that a lot of people here work the night shift or just tend to stay up late compared to Europeans. I feel like Europeans tend to be up a lot earlier and they tend to sleep a lot earlier as well. That was a big culture shock for me moving to Europe, because my family and I, look, we're all up until probably 3 a.m. a lot of days, especially my dad and I mean, we've stayed up until 6 a.m. just talking about basketball or whatever else. But this is one thing that I did miss about America when I was in Europe. This is probably the only thing, aside from my family, that just from a societal standpoint, I missed, was having access to stores 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.